Let's talk about the business of the day as it relates to theater with your hosts, Darnell Radford and Mitch Weiss. This is The Business of Theater, a working title. Mitch, I know we're trying to figure this out, but we cannot name the podcast The Business of Theater, No Laughing Matter.
I think that's the most accurate title we've had so far.
I know it is pretty close, but I don't know. I'm just thinking about the connotation of it when it's just like no laughing
Well, we don't
matter.
want to turn
I
people
guess
away either, and it might turn them off. I get that. But half of it is we love it, and the other half is we're warning everyone about it. It's a mess.
we want people to feel like it's fun. We want people to have fun with us in this space, but it really is no laughing matter. I don't know. We'll put a pin in
there
that.
are a lot of people getting hurt along the way. Look, first of all, even just jumping back to Broadway, the list of shows closing, which is no surprise every summer. There's always some. But it's just, if you delve into why they're closing, it's not the normal reasons. There are leaders who are not leading. There are people who don't know what they're doing running the bank accounts. There are all sorts of things involved. Anyway, that's depressing to me.
Well, I'll tell you,
I'm
listener,
not laughing.
We've been talking for 30 minutes before we even hit record in here, but welcome to The Business of Theater, a working title. I'm Darnell
I'm Mitch
Radford.
Weiss.
Let's get down to business. Yes, it is no laughing matter, but I don't know. I'm really holding on to that one. I think that one's gonna. If we do change this working title to no laughing matter, I think that'll be interesting.
Well,
you know what?
We got to bring some jokes that can counter that title.
I know, but let me tell you this. Here's what I want to do. I want to take these rejected titles and make T-shirts.
See, we're giving someone else money. That's what's wrong with the theater. We're the ones who need it. We got to pay our people.
We create the T-shirt. We sell it.
There you
go.
Sell the T-shirt. Merchandise. Yeah. And let's be
The Business of Theater. And then it says rejected titles on the back, and it's like no laughing matter. And then every so often we put out another one.
We're going to be the only ones buying them. That's the problem.
We got to record it. Hey, you never know. There's a bunch of nerds out there. Like, hey, theater nerds.
Yeah.
Holla.
Hey, and this past weekend was Broadway Con here in New York.
Yes.
Which
did you attend? Or were you
wasn't
a part
even
of
interested.
It anyway?
The very first year they started, I was a facilitator, or what do you call them when you lead a panel? The moderator on two panels. So I was very interested in what they were trying to do. This was at the Javits Center, and it was actually very exciting. It has fallen down a little bit. I mean, they've had to wait during the pandemic, but it's a money grabber. They sell a lot of merchandise. They have a lot of kids who want to come there and sit around, and which they do have keyboards where people are playing show tunes and everyone just stands around there singing, which is exciting if you're 16 years old. But if you're really trying to learn something about our industry, it's an amusement park, and I don't want to knock them down. I give these people a lot of credit for putting this together. It's expensive. It's just how much they charge. Everything is how much they charge. A Broadway show, even one that isn't great, is worth seeing if they're not charging $250.
But didn't Secretary Clinton?
Yeah. She opened it. She's one of the moderators, and they do this. Look, we all want to be part of it. Most shows, even next year's shows, come in and a singer will sing or a composer will come in and sing one song from a future show because they think then the audience there will want to buy a ticket in the future. It's a little promo, and everyone wants to be part of
Mm.
it because this is the audience. But then it ends up an advertisement. It's just another form of advertisement. The panels are interesting. They have some very valid, worthwhile people there. Um, what I've observed is, let's say, out of hundreds of people, maybe 40 show up for each panel, unless there's a celebrity in the panel. I'm sure,
Mm.
uh, almost President Clinton was a sold out hit.
Secretary.
Yeah, I
Secretary.
know. I call her almost president.
I know it's funny. Like which one of your titles is the most, um, you know, lucrative? I guess it's like first lady. You were not
Yeah,
paid, so it's secretary.
yeah. Well, she was New York
former
senator
former Democratic presidential
and she
nominee
and senator and
candidate.
senator. Yeah, she's got a
Senator.
lot of
Yeah,
titles. And yeah,
yeah,
and she loves the theater, which is great that she did it.
yeah.
as you may have noticed, I have mixed feelings about everything. I adore the theater.
Hmm.
I just think we have a broken model. Um,
Oh
and
yeah, we all. I think it's actually healthy to have a love hate with with the theater community. We love it so much, and then we hate the things that don't necessarily
yeah.
work out. That's because we love it
Oh,
so
and
much.
speaking of which, and you and I we had just touched on this topic. That one of the things that attracted me to theater right from the beginning is it's a collaborative art form. Somebody can sit at
Hmm.
home and write a play, but it's not a play until you bring in someone to perform it, someone to direct it, someone to design it. You go down the list, um, right?
It has to leap off the
There
page and
there you
onto
go,
the
and you need
stage.
an audience. I mean, you put it all together, and a Broadway show uses 200 people. Um,
Mm.
can, whether it's a nonprofit or whatever, you need a bunch of creative people all throwing their hat in the ring. That's great. Why doesn't that apply to the administrative end of theater? There is um, what's supposed to be a benevolent dictator who is the
Mm.
one deciding all the big issues. That's whether you're a commercial producer, but I think much more importantly, as an artistic director in a regional and nonprofit theater, um, the key word is benevolent. You have somebody comes in there and you say, hey, we're putting on theater and we have a mission and we're supposed to be, since we're nonprofit, we're supposed to help our community and we're supposed to help the artistic community. Maybe we don't just do only old shows. We're trying to bring in new work. Whatever their mission would be. And yet you
Yeah.
can't kick an artistic director out. It almost never happens. And they start to think they own the theater, and yet they're asking me to donate money. And I'm going, well, wait a minute. Am I donating it to a theater of people who care about their community and the artistic world and the culture of America and the world? Or am I donating it to you so you can have a bunch of fun doing whatever you feel like?
Well, that's an interesting question, because I had that was a similar conversation that has come up over the past week or so. Who is the theater?
Mm,
You know, um, if you think about it from the marketing standpoint, you're spending a lot of time talking about what you did, and every company isn't necessarily talking about who they are.
right.
They're talking about what they did. So, they want to celebrate that their opening show, like we opened the season with a bang, and then we did this, and then we did that, and then we had a gala, and so on. And it's like, yes, but who are you? It's like if you're only so the it's it does seem like a lot of companies are selling what they're bringing to the stage and not who's running the company, like who's working here, who makes up the entity that is the organization. And this isn't something I notice particularly with theater companies, but arts, nonprofit organizations in general. Like, I remember working for a company way back who did not want to have a staff list on the website.
Hmm.
It was like, if you don't know who these people are, like, how can people find this company and then find a way to, like, connect? Maybe they'll know somebody who works here and say, "Oh, I know them," and uh, they get
Right.
involved in a lot of great things. So let me see. Like, it is relationships. You can't call yourself a community if you're really trying to hide the fact that you're part of the community.
Well, and it's a side issue, but I think it's an important one. What I've discovered in in theater, well, in the world, there are two types of power. One type of person believes that power is knowing more than everyone else. I have information about how things run and how they're going to run, and because I'm keeping it close to the breast, I am powerful. The other person,
Mm.
who of course I prefer, let's be clear, is the person who says, I'm powerful because I have all this information and all the people I work with know they can rely on me to share it with them so they can do their jobs better. They can interpret it. If they know that I'm thinking, or not me, that we're about to get a grant and it's going to give us an extra $50,000, then someone in marketing or someone in the play department or someone who's a director or whoever this, or someone on the board of directors is going to say, I always thought we ought to be doing this and that would cost us 20,000, but I was afraid to bring it up. How about we think about this
Mm.
idea as a way to use that money that makes us a better place? You're not going to get that if no one knows that information. If no one knows what play you're going to do next year, but you've already decided it, they can't be saying, oh, no, that doesn't work because I heard my cousin told me that they're doing that in St. Louis. So, oh my God, you didn't know that it's already purchased and that you can't do that play anymore? You have to share this information. And those are the two types
Well,
of power. And
I wonder. I wonder if some of the structure is because the leaders of these organizations, their primary goal is to raise money,
yeah, it has become that.
and it's like, what happened to just
Go ahead.
you know telling stories and bringing the most important conversations to the stage,
That's
and
why, by the way, they're nonprofit
engaging,
and they don't have to pay taxes. The,
starting the conversation. Yeah. And it does seem like that the focus is mostly on how can we afford this. And so I thought about early on in the pandemic, I said, I wonder if a smaller company is actually doing well right now. They don't have a venue to maintain, so they can book a venue, when it's safe. They can pivot to other ways of telling
right.
the story easier than someone who has a facility to maintain. So I thought about that, and early on, in the other podcasts we produce at Emory, the focus was to kind of shine a light on those companies who were being creative
Let,
in this moment and thinking about, like, how to continue telling stories and engaging in the
well, I usually
conversation.
don't want to name names, but in this case, I have a shout out. The pandemic was going
Mm.
on. We finally had vaccines, but we still had the pandemic. And there's a theater company here in New York, a small theater company, Intar, Intar. Happy to celebrate them. I had never given them money. I'd seen one or two of their shows. It's basically a Latinx oriented company. And they advertised that they were going to do a new musical on the street in New York. So it would be outside. And they built a stage, a little platform, put lights on it. They had a sound system, had a live band, and a small cast. And when you showed up to see the show, what they did, they asked the city, "Can we shut down this block for a few hours?" And the city gave them permission. You have to go through whatever process. And there were no other shows running, by the way. Broadway is shut down, off Broadway is gone. They're doing the first show possible. And I walked up there and they said, "We have folding chairs. Where would you like to sit on the street that you feel safe? The two of you are together. Would you like to sit next to each other?" And then the next people who showed up, they made sure their chairs weren't near ours. I mean, this wasn't a large audience. And we paid money for this. And it was an hour and a half musical, and it was delightful. It actually it drizzled for part of it, but everyone had their umbrella. It didn't make any difference. The cast and the sound equipment was all under the roof that they had built over this little stage. I just said, I will donate to this company day and night. Hallelujah. They just said, we're creating something. We're not trying to get something back from it. We want to do this. And they figured out how to. So exactly what you're saying.
That's International Arts Relations.
Is that what their name means? Had no idea. They've been around quite a while. I mean, I don't know in this, who's running it at this moment.
They also have a podcast.
Look at that.
So I'm definitely going to find out more about that.
But, they haven't been doing a lot since then. But I just was thrilled at the idea that they had decided to move ahead with this. And, I told them so. But on the other hand, there are larger theaters, as you said. They have venues and they have rent or mortgages, depending. But they did nothing. They didn't even invite me into their lobby to participate in a discussion. I would have taken anything. You can separate me. You can put a plexiglass. You can do it outside. We love theater. What's going on? And these companies did not even, and this is my biggest gripe, they did not even email their staff to say, how are you doing during the pandemic? Because I heard from these staff members, they said, they ignored us. We're not even going to go back and work there. We refuse. That has nothing to do with, that people are quitting their jobs. This is theater. They don't want to work for these theaters. And these are major theaters. I won't name them. So these are the.
I know which one you're talking about.
No, I found out 3 more. I got.
Well, the one next door. The one next door to you, right?
The one next door, and there are a few more.
Yeah.
In addition, they paid their executives a lot of money during the pandemic. Some of them, and now that they're asking staff to come back, they're at minimum wage, and they're begging me as an audience member for money. How dare you? If you paid your executives that money. It's like, no, we're a collaborative, right? We are here to do something for our community, even if it's just the theater community. Anyway.
Yeah. Speaking of not wanting to work, and this kind of was a topic I was interested in touching on, the revolt of Edinburgh Fringe.
That's a big topic.
Yeah, I mean, there's been a struggle at Edinburgh Festival
in England,
Fringe.
Just be clear for those who don't know, it's in England.
Yes, in Edinburgh, Scotland, UK, whatever you want to call it. That for one, it's just expensive to even get in the festival because of the logistics of one, getting there and then lodging while you're there, and then your production. It's a challenge, and the thing is, like, an organization who's running a festival should understand that it's not going to be easy for everyone to just sign up and join. Like, they have to support them. Like, one thing I think is interesting about Fringe Arts here in Philadelphia is that they they were under Noah's. Well, there's two parts of Fringe Arts. There's their curated lineup, and then what they call the neighborhood, Philly um, Fringe neighborhood, uh, which is a collection of companies that end up in the catalog, but they're producing all over the city. And what I thought was really valuable that Fringe Arts did for these companies is they treated them like a so you want to be a producer. There was tons of information on how to produce the show in the festival. There were a lot of resources that they gave, and this is not to say that Edinburgh Fringe doesn't give that information, but I thought that that stuff was valuable because it's people don't understand it. It's like I've got an idea and I want to share it, but maybe I don't think it's something that can stand on its own as like we're going to run this for a month in a venue. It might be something that's small that you can put up, and it's one of 12 shows at this venue during this period of time where everybody is in kind of the mindset of being overwhelmed by works,
Yeah.
in various states of progress. And so, you know, um, I really appreciate that about Fringe Arts, but even going to Edinburgh Festival Fringe as a patron is expensive. You have to plan so far in advance, to get adequate airfare, and then you have to plan on getting a place to stay, and while you're there, and then you're running around and everything. You're basically hovering, and of course, you're living out of a suitcase. It's crazy that it got so large and it's so problematic.
The line "too large to manage" that works for
Yeah.
corporations. It works for theater also. And by the way, you're talking about how expensive it is. Let's go back to this is not news. If you come with a family to a Broadway show, and you don't buy the most expensive tickets. Let's say you spend $100 a seat. So that's four people. That's $400. You come in from out New Jersey or Long Island or upstate New York. You drive in. That's gas, not cheap. You have to go over tolls to get here, not cheap. You have to find parking. Lord knows New York City parking is very expensive. Then you have to eat. And even if you go cheap, there's no such thing in Times Square, right?
Mm.
Even a cart, it's
Unless you just want $2
right.
pizza.
Which is if you have your family, and you can do that. But let's assume not. So we're talking about what could be a $600 to $1,000 evening, and then the show isn't good, or you don't have the greatest seats because you didn't spend the top dollar. What are we doing? I remember we were talking about this decades ago. If you're going to come to the theater, shouldn't we have a red carpet outside? Shouldn't we have the Klieg lights that are shining out there to make you feel like, what an experience. I'm coming to an opening night, even if it's not opening night. The whole experience should be, I'm excited to just be here.
VIP.
And instead, it's like, well, of course, now you have to show your vaccination card. And
also, we're so grateful for every single patron who has come to the theater that night. But at the same time, we're trying to pretend that we are not grateful for them to be in this space occupying these seats.
8 times a week, which is abuse for some of us. It may be abusive if you're a dancer. There are certain things that may be too much. You have a 4-hour show. That's a lot of work. So some people, there's no difference made in union rules between a long show and a short show, a big cast show and a small cast show. Everyone's getting paid the same, unless you're going overtime. That's another issue. But for the most part, the audience is coming in, and you want them. And I do know the company managers and house managers think about this all the time. You want them to have a great experience. You want them to want to come back. What you can't do is say, Well, what about people who can't afford that kind of money? We keep talking about diversifying theater. It's not just on stage, it's got to be the people working there and the people coming to see it. And if, yeah, you can argue, and it is a valid argument, you want to sit in the last row, you can get yourself a $35 ticket. But four people going to the theater, that's $140. You still have to get there. You have to do the parking. You have to do the eating, maybe. It's still not cheap. It's a special experience.
And it's hard. It's hard to because you have what is it? Was it dynamic
Oh,
pricing?
yes, that's
Is that what they call
dynamic
it?
pricing.
Yeah. It's like, so when you do a budget, your budget probably should be based on the lowest, ticket you can sell.
Oh, no way. Yeah.
But
Yeah.
it's not. It's not. It's like we're really hoping to sell more tickets on
Mhm.
Saturday, to kind of offset the fact that we've lowered the cost of tickets, for the midweek.
Well, they don't do that on
Um,
Broadway
and
anymore. Um, just
yeah,
going back again, in the 1970s, there could be as many as 9 prices in a theater. You could sit in the orchestra,
hmm,
the main level seating, on the sides and get a cheaper ticket than if you were sitting in the middle section. Now they just charge the same amount for the entire main level. And they even go into the
hmm,
first few rows upstairs. And they're charging the top price because the audience demand is there. I mean, that's the
yeah,
argument. Dynamic pricing, by the way, just so people know, is when you get colleges and schools are off for spring break. So they go, there are going to be more tourists and more people with free time. Let's hike the prices just for that week. And then the week after, we bring it back to our normal prices. That's dynamic. It's like what
yeah,
the airlines do. We know certain flights are in more demand than others. We know that people travel more at Christmas time than they do the rest of the year, so they hike the prices at those times. Broadway caught on to that because their goal is to make as much money as possible. Great. Again, we're down to corporate consciousness, which is we need to return as much to the investors as we can, and hopefully we do a little something for the audience by giving them a good show. And
hmm.
what nonprofits, on the other hand, what are they doing differently? Let me do my grammar correctly. Um, that it's the question is that if I go to see a show at a particular nonprofit, is it just going to feel like, oh, again, the same thing? I bought a ticket. I'm going to see the show. Thank you. Goodbye. Is that all I get? Is that what
Well,
you're not paying taxes for? What's the difference between a commercial producer and a nonprofit producer? There ought to be one.
well, so I asked a question recently. There's a lot of ways to support
Yes.
organizations, and I've been seeing this membership model more frequently in nonprofit theaters. And it's like, well, if you become a member, you get something as a member, right? But there are a lot of there are a lot of ways you can give. Are sustaining levels you can give because you just feel like throwing money down
Right.
down a theatrical well. But you're not get but you don't always get anything out of it. You're just like you're just giving them money. And that is a question too. So I had asked because I don't think about it sometimes. The way I've justified it, and I'm not everyone, is I think about how much would I have spent if my idea of entertainment was to sit in a bar and drop $50, and drinks and have chats that I could have had in a park for free. Um, and then say, well, could I help this company achieve their goals by transferring that money to them instead of, but they're not all necessarily thanking me for that.
Hmm.
And not that I want a pat on the back or anything, but there's sometimes there's just no exchange. When you look up, you've given a good amount of your money to an organization that, there really isn't any, there's a thank you. You can be listed, but I can be listed on a
Right.
Kickstarter.
Well, and
You
that's
know?
a really good point. We do have a new model to talk about, which is like a Kickstarter. On Kickstarter, people will say, well, if you give me this amount of money, you're going to get this. And then you can decide,
Mhm.
sometimes it's altruistic or it's a family member, so you're going to give no matter what. On the other end, it could be, well, hey, look, if I give an extra $50, I'm in a new category and they're going to send me a free CD. Well, nonprofit,
Yeah.
supposedly, we're paying, you pay it for a ticket, so you're going to see the show. That's all your money's supposed to. Wait a minute, that wasn't enough money for you to put the show on. Now you're asking me for more money, but
Oh,
the
no. Ticket sales only
that's
account
right.
for 50% of our
Right,
expenses,
exactly.
which maybe
So,
even
and
lower.
that's where when you look at Broadway, they've got it better. This pays for 100%. We're not going to ask you for any more because we're
Mm,
covering our costs and we're giving our investors money. So, I mean, yeah, they're bilking you, but it's there. Nonprofit is going the
yeah.
opposite direction. We're going to have to beg you because you're not willing to spend the actual cost of a ticket to see our show. And that is a very strange business model because now you're going, what's the idea? I'm going to go after my relatives. Uh, I work in such and such theater and they love me, and my theater company's in having trouble. Please give me $100 more because you love me. You know, there's something wrong with this model, and yet it has existed for almost 100 years, right? And the reason the government gives, they keep saying government should give more money to theater, which would be great. But the issue with that is government's already giving you money. They're not charging you tax. You get to exist without ever paying tax. So
Wouldn't it be fun?
go ahead.
Wouldn't it be fun if we found out that a working title for a strange loop was a strange business model?
Isn't, by the way, how painful is that? It took them 20 years. And
Yeah.
this is something that's dear to my heart.
We can't all be Lin-Manuel Miranda,
Yeah,
It only took him 7
well,
years
yeah. Uh,
for
and
In the
and
Heights.
talent, and there are many more talented people like Michael R.
Mhm.
Jackson and Lin Manuel Miranda. They may not be the same geniuses. I'm not going to qualify anything, but there are many talented people. Why have we made it
Yeah.
so impossible? It's not even hard. It is impossible. If you live in Omaha and you happen to be one of those Shakespeare geniuses who know how to write, the chances of you getting your show to a stage, except maybe in your high school, is almost zero. How depressing is
Mm.
that? And like
Well,
my passion is I'm trying to find these people and help them find a stage because I want
mhm.
more cultural genius to be heard. I don't want to keep.
But
Go
do you
ahead.
think but so okay, so you said that. You're trying to help these writers find a stage. But do you think that's it? It's like you just have a product, but you don't have, that's not a
No.
business model. It's a product. So you can't say it's not like if I'm a baker and I have a product, I do need to create a structure in order to
Right.
sell those baked goods. And you know, uh, in the past, it was traditional that you had to have brick and mortar, and then you had to get people to come to your
Mm-hmm.
brick and mortar to patronize you. But because we don't have those things, maybe we're kind of not thinking about all of the pieces that we need to have in place. I thought about this early on when I started my company. I didn't have the brick and mortar, so I was like, okay, just tell them we're
Mhm.
producing a show. Like, put the down payment on a venue, and then work from there. It's like, yeah, but doesn't it make sense to have all of that first and then say, now what are we doing here? Because if that was the mindset, then I it would have taken longer, and I would have had to make sure that that infrastructure was in
Mhm.
place.
Well,
So I think that is interesting about art. Art doesn't necessarily require the infrastructure to exist, but in order to sustain, it needs the
um,
infrastructure.
yeah, I hear what you're saying, and I get it, but you're leaving out the important part. You, with your company, you directed it. You made it a priority option. Idea of saying I'm going to have the venue first, and then fill it and find stuff. But then you have to put the people together who are going to collaborate to make to when you find the product to
Mhm.
put it together, and they have to be available in those particular times, and you have to decide to work for whatever amount of money you think you can afford, and you haven't explained to me as a generic audience member why I'm going to support you.
Yeah, why any of that is
Right.
essential?
and
Why is
and
it
that
necessary to
essential
do?
is a very important word. I heard somebody this past week talking about, well, every nonprofit, they, especially the board of directors, by the way, and that's a whole other problem we can talk about. Board of directors, lots of reasons for people to be willing and able and being asked to be on a board of directors. Most of them are not good reasons. Because
Just
they're
tell
afraid to
everybody
open
you're
their
on.
mouth, even though they're business people, and they're usually there because they're friendly with the artistic director or the managing director or somebody working on it, so they're going to be there to support them. And they're often not brought in very often on any decision of importance. But the question that the
Mhm.
board has to sit down with its major staff and talk about is, if we were to shut down right now, does the community or the world suffer? If not, why do we need to
Yeah.
be here? Let's let some other company do it. And unfortunately, now we come back down to these artistic directors who are basically saying, I couldn't get a job on Broadway, or I couldn't get a job at the Guthrie Theater, so I'm going to create my own theater and do what I want. Well, if you do that, you better have your own money, because you're going to have to prove to me that what you're doing is going to be worthwhile for me as an audience member, as a community member. And very often, I did the same thing, by the way. In my 20s, I had a nonprofit theater company here in New York. We we got wonderful reviews on the shows we did. Wonderful. We had musicals, plays. I was thrilled about it. We barely broke even financially, but we did, which was great. And then you go, and what do I do now? Nobody cares. The people came to see the shows cared because they had a good experience. But you get one flop,
Yeah.
and the whole idea drops through the floor. So
Yeah.
it is, well, then why not just do one show and hope for a hit? And then that's Broadway. See, now we're out of the nonprofit again. It's like I keep going back because nonprofit is so important. We need people to incubate our talent, to let directors try it, to work on things, to use whatever creativity to learn. You're not going to learn this in school. You can't. You have to work together on projects. You have to find out, what, I'm a better sound designer than I am a director. And I only found that out because I got to
Mm.
work with this theater company on this show. And I loved it, but I saw that this isn't for me. Right?
Yeah.
We need this stuff. And instead, you brought it up before, you're right on the money. It's a community. Your staff is a community. What are we doing? How are we involving ourselves to say we're all part of this. Those of us who love the theater, we want to work on shows. Well, how do we make the
Yeah.
people who are, own a dry cleaning business feel like they're part of us, understand the excitement?
Yeah, and are we telling our story
Mm-hmm.
or someone
Well,
else's?
Lord knows a
Like when we
strange
produce
loop.
these.
Whose story, right?
Yeah,
Is that our story
yeah.
or is that his story? It's still interesting. Don't get me wrong. Yeah.
Oh, yes, but yeah, for a nonprofit, the nonprofit is the
Right.
producer,
They
so to
are.
speak. Yes, is the producer, but who is the producer?
Mm-hmm.
If we're only talking about what we're bringing to the stage, so we don't really know, or do we even need to care who brought this
Yeah.
to the stage?
No, it's true.
And then on Broadway, do we really care who the
No.
producer is?
Although people tried, they will say from the producers of blah, blah, blah. Well, it doesn't matter. If your show's not good, I'm not going. You know,
Yeah,
yeah.
it just means for those who brought you blah blah blah, which means okay, that show's been around for how long? Which means these people are way past their prime.
And if they're lucky, they'll get another
you
one. And
know,
it means that they can't talk me into wanting to see it unless they use their own credentials. It's like that doesn't work. I'm going to wait.
and it's also if you are an artistic leader with something to say, how often are you out there publicly saying it too? Like there are some artistic directors where I might meet them, I might see them at opening night, and I'll say, happy opening, I really enjoyed this production, and then they will engage, you know, for a good period of time, like in that moment about like why they brought this here and all these things, and it's like, but where is this? Where is this for the people who are not in this room right now? Who are the people who are not overhearing this
All right,
conversation we're
but
having?
Darnell, let's
Um,
let's also bring up one other point. Most people have jobs. They don't have time.
mm,
Yeah, and I understand between TikTok and social media and podcasts and all this stuff that we reach out, right? But if you're going to see a show at,
who's on
uh,
TikTok? You on
no,
TikTok?
I'm not on TikTok, but they use it. They use it to promote shows. They do. Uh,
I think MW Entertainment should be
yeah, I
on
do too,
TikTok.
but it ain't going to happen. Not. I just don't have
Take
time.
them, take them into, take them
I
into
don't
the
have the
room,
time.
the farm.
And again, if I could collaborate with someone who's excited about TikTok, great. I would love it.
Mhm.
I would absolutely yes. And then the question comes, well, how do I pay you? Where's the money? It's always, where's the money? We are in America. It's capitalism. Where's the money? And if you go to a Broadway show and they tell you they spent $18 million on a show and they couldn't afford to have someone work on TikTok, whoa, where are we spending this? You know?
Well, they're like, well, we hired a
Yeah.
marketing firm. They couldn't
It's,
afford to have someone on
absolutely.
TikTok.
I've been there. I've been in the room where they said, well, we have one person working all the social media and there are 5 people watching. 5. They actually counted the people on there.
So, do you think if they said so how come this wasn't discussed, or how come there wasn't a thought process for this? It's because
Oh,
no one else was in the
you
room
got
when
it.
it
Well, you
happened.
also, it's funny, but thank you for singing. We at least have some music in the show. Um, the producer, in that particular case, didn't know anything about it and approved it instead of saying, well, we only have so much money. Why don't we emphasize one direction where we think our audience is? If the producer
Hmm.
doesn't have enough knowledge of the industry they are in, which is a lot of times, and as you're saying, if an artistic director at a nonprofit isn't interested in playing politics, but is begging people for money, we've now got two samples of disaster about to happen. And in both cases, there is disaster. And the artistic, again, it comes back to the wonderful Joe Papp. Um, This man was a politician, a political genius. He accomplished so much because he was out there as well as dealing with the creative people. So I look
Mm.
at again, when is a board of directors going to fire their artistic directors because they can't do both? They're not that good at it, and they don't because the board is selected by the artistic director. It's that.
There's an artistic director
Yeah, it
calling
is
right now.
actually. I'm just.
Excuse me.
No, it's all
Excuse
right.
me. Excuse me.
Thank God for Apple with the automatic messages. You just tell them go away.
uh, the correct term is fruit themed
Oh,
technology
excuse me.
company. They are
Sing
not
it.
a
Sing
sponsor
it.
yet. Yeah, I there was oh yeah, so I had asked a question, well, in general of the community, like, isn't it is our goal to have the old audience return or for a new audience to emerge?
And there's enough space. It doesn't have to be the same company because as someone who fits the old audience category, I like going to the new audience plays. So, right?
Yeah.
So it's not a matter.
I don't mean old as
I
in age.
understand.
I'm
I
thinking about
understand.
nonprofits, like, I was a sponsor until this intermission ran longer than expected. Um, but are we trying to get them back, or are we trying to embrace and usher in a new audience?
Well,
And some of that is a question, when we think about what we're bringing to the
and it's
stage,
supposed
and
to be the
what does
artistic
a new audience
director's
want?
job to lead the rest of the staff and the board into the reason why you choose this audience or this topic, or whether you're going to insist, you know what, we're not doing another show until we are sure we are a diverse and inclusive organization. An artistic director can
Mhm.
decide that. They don't, do they? And then the question is going to
Yeah.
be, well, we have this wonderful show. It doesn't fit diversity or inclusion, but it's a wonderful show. That's okay. It's theater. What are we just, we're doing this particular show because it entertains people, but it's a stupid, silly Three Stooges kind of, the play that goes wrong. And
Mm.
then we're doing something that is so intense that it's going to make you rethink your entire life. There's nothing wrong with that, but
Mhm.
who's the person leading us, meaning us workers, and exciting us? And if you can excite us, you can also excite a community, and that's part of their job. Choosing the play is too easy. I'm sorry, and I know it's not easy. Believe me, I've been there.
That's that's Chicago.
Sing it,
I just
sing
think
it.
about Richard Gere.
Um, So anyway, yeah, and we're
Yeah.
missing these people, and part of it is because they're
Well, this is
they're too young and young in their mind. I'm not
yeah.
saying age necessarily, or they haven't thought
Well,
it
this is
through.
coming up as this is I mean, these are thoughts as subscription season
Mm-hmm.
begins. For these companies, it's like, okay, I know that it's been a tough, couple of years for you, but who cares if we don't know who you are and why you're emerging with this lineup? Why does this lineup matter? And it can't just be because they're all
Mm-hmm.
new. All new plays. Like, okay, but why these? Why this collection? Out of, I imagine a myriad of plays you've read. Why are you choosing these? And a lot of that is because I saw it on
Yeah,
Broadway or I saw it in New York and I want to be the first to bring it here. It's like, okay, but why does it matter that you bring it here? We still need to understand whether it spoke to you and why it spoke to you, and like what were your first impressions. Like, these are the kind of things, like, I think people don't realize, I don't know, maybe it's just me because I've been, awfully chatty since 2009. Um, you know,
Wait a minute. There
I
was a
guess,
time you weren't chatty?
well, I mean, on
Oh,
the
I see.
record,
Okay.
I've been on the record since
Right.
2009, but, with various podcasts. But, like, there are companies here in Philadelphia where they produce a season, and I'm like, okay, but I don't know. I never hear anything from the artistic director. I just know that you have a season, and, maybe at your curtain speech, or you're one of those companies that you keep putting out your board members, but they didn't pick the
Right.
season. They just went along with it. So, we need to hear from you. Like, there has to be. I mean, I guess it's also in the playbill. Like, but who's reading this long letter from the director or the artistic director about this particular show? And it's in there about the show, but the
Your
organization as a
organization.
whole. This is why we exist. Um, I feel like we could do a better job of that, because we do have community members. We have members of our community that will always support the community. But what about the people who would rather go to a movie, or rather stay at home and watch something on streaming
Yeah.
platform? Like, how do we get them to be as excited about something they can just
And we
turn
may
on?
not be able to do
Because
that, and that's okay too. The trick is, do you not try? And so many people aren't even trying. And they're running
yeah,
theater
but there's
companies. That's my
yeah,
problem. It's like you have two senators from a particular state, and one of them is just taking the cash and going home, and the other one is fighting for every bill they can get, and they send out newsletters, and they talk. It comes down to communication. That's what we're talking about. The
mm,
number one thing for any show, theater company, organization, and I was talking about the power struggle. If you're hoarding the information, what your organization's about, what your show's about, what coming up next, if you're hoarding it, of course you don't communicate. If you believe, hey, I'm going to share this, well, how many ways can you share? Even if it's just we're sending you a one-page email every week to let you know what we're thinking, what's going on here. I may not read it,
mhm,
but the fact that I see
yep,
you in my emails reminds me
mhm,
you exist and you're trying to reach me. That alone gets me
yeah, and
interested.
now we have all this capability,
Yeah.
so there's no reason why you can't. I mean, we have to look at, yeah, yeah, like TikTok. There's a way to engage that audience very quickly and say, this is why what we do matters. Um, you know, eh, when you have all of this technology at your
Yeah.
fingertips, and you know and it's also crazy that the nonprofit doesn't have access to this technology, but every random person walking on the street has it.
It's about
So it's
priorities.
like,
You make the priority.
if you see everyone walking around with their phones, then you have to how do you get yourself in
Yeah.
there so that they're looking down at you, or they're looking at your organization and learning about you, because it's not all empty.
By the way, that's it.
It's not all empty, just time
You,
passing.
do you remember reading during the
Disable.
pandemic about how, since everything was being streamed or zoomed because we couldn't do it live, and all of a sudden these theater companies, including the Metropolitan Opera, their audience went from 1,500 people in the big theater, or 100 people in their small theater, to 40,000 saw the show and
Mm,
paid $10 or $20 to see it. It's a
yeah.
business model, and even though I'm not a fan of two-dimensional, right? The reason I go to theater is it's three-dimensional. and I'm in the room. You feel the
Mm.
excitement. That's part of what I'm there for. But these are people, you're not losing them. They may still come in and see your three-dimensional show, but at least they know what you're doing. And we're already reverting to the old system. People are because it now costs more money. You're saying, "Hey, I'm spending all this money on stage. It's going to, the unions are going to make me pay the actors more if I stream it." When during the pandemic, since all I could do was stream it, they weren't charging me. And it's like, well, no, change your business model. Figure out what it is, who you're trying to reach, how many people, will they show up? Are you expanding your audience? I don't have the answers. I got these questions, and I'm looking for leaders. I don't own a theater, so I can't do this. But if I did, you damn tootin', this is what I'd be looking to do. And I'm saying I'm not the genius of the world. Where are the other people who are running theaters? What's going on?
Yeah.
And it takes money. We know that.
Yeah.
Anyway,
It does, but there's a kid sitting in their room right now making this happen. And they may not have a lot of money, or they may not have any money, but they do have an idea
right.
of something. So I think I've always thought we needed to pay more attention to that. For instance, there are a lot of cord cutters. Like, there are a lot of people who don't have
Mm-hmm.
cable, so they do rely on streaming media, like YouTube, Vimeo, Instagram, TikTok, you know, uh, uh, to be entertained. So if you know that about people, um, you know, those are the spaces that they have to be able to find you
Right.
too, um,
Yeah.
because that's where they are. You know, you could, you could actually survey your audience and say, what are the 5 websites you visit? You know,
Oh, and there
let us
are
know
places
which websites you
we've
think
done
are
that in
good.
New York. I've been to places where they ask me. I just don't know what they're
Yeah,
doing with the information.
I'm not saying that people don't do that. I'm just saying, like, if they're telling you that, oh, I do spend a lot of time on Instagram, then you need to be there. Hi, how you doing?
Yeah.
You said you hang out here, so we're
Yeah.
here
Come
too.
visit me, and
It's
while
big
you're
in
here, see a
here.
show.
A lot. It's a lot of space in here. Exactly. Like, yeah. Let me give you pieces. Like, so for instance, I was watching. Oh no, I'm gonna forget the name of the artist. He's in Tina on
Yeah.
Broadway, and on his Instagram, they've been showing backstage scene, wardrobe changes with the dresser and everything. The actor that's playing Ike right now,
I don't.
and so I've been following him.
I
Burrows,
don't
I think his
remember
name
his
is. Oh
name.
my god, I'm gonna put it in the show notes. Anyway, I love that stuff. I love seeing, like, there's 3 people back here making sure that this next
Yeah.
transition works. And I said it before, like, the thing I love about Cinderella is how organic those costume changes were. That was really cool. Um, Understanding those things makes us, uh, you know, it does break the fourth wall a bit. They're not really addressing us directly, but we're seeing something that we usually don't see. Kind of having that information, like, this might be a show that only has 3 actors,
Mm-hmm.
right? But there's a ton of people behind the scenes making this show happen.
Yeah.
Allowing for these actors
And
to
people
play
are
on
interested in
stage.
that.
So
They
show
like
it.
being part of the
Yes.
secrets, quote unquote, the tricks, the just the way things operate.
Yeah.
Um,
And everybody's not going to
right.
watch. Everybody's not going to tune into that, but the people that tune into that will have a deeper, hopefully, would have a deeper
And they'll have
connection
something to talk about,
with
which is
the
great. And
underlying.
even if they don't come to that show, they may say, "Oh, that was the theater that did this." Uh, you know, it, but it still comes back down to, and if it's okay with you, this is my final say. we're still are when the world blows up, hopefully 20,000 years from now, or I mean, not before that is what I'm saying. Hopefully, the thing that they say in the history books people remember are wars and culture. So,
Mm-hmm.
as an overall group, theater, music, visual arts, we're all part of that culture. What are we doing?
Mm-hmm.
And you want to bring in new voices. You want to see people who are taking risks, even if it fails, along with people who are entertaining us. Television is not the same thing as theater, and they're both valid. But on TV,
Mm-hmm.
I don't see that as culture. That's entertainment. For the most, there are exceptions. Don't get me wrong. There's some wonderful things out there. Uh, but in theater, because of its collaborative nature, because it is done in real time in a room in which the atmosphere is as important as the story. It is the connection that when you're sitting in that seat, someone is not just talking at you, they're trying to get inside
Mm-hmm.
you, and you're there with the person sitting next to you, and you're all in this together. So, how do we
Yeah.
make the most of that?
We're all in this
And
together.
that's the way we should end the
That's all I think.
podcast. Thank you. No, really, that's our finale. Uh,
Yeah,
Lovely
that's it.
talking to you, Darnell. And
Yeah.
theater. And what was our new catch line? It's the it's not
This
a
has been
laughing
the
matter.
business of theater, a working title, or no
No
laughing
laughing
matter.
matter. All right.
I'm
I'm
Darnell
Mitch
Radford,
Weiss.
and we will see you at the theater.
Bye.
Thank you for listening. Tune in next time for another episode of The Business of Theater, a working title, with Darnell Radford and Mitch Weiss. Subscribe to the podcast wherever you listen to podcasts. Share the podcast with a friend, colleague, or give us some social media love. This podcast is an Emory production. Visit us online at em3ry.com/TBOT. Follow us on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram at em3ryotm.